Welcome to episode 10 of the Michigan Outdoors podcast. As always, I'm Tyler Mihai alongside Steve Wyndham, and we have Justin Tomei zooming in. We're also joined by a very special guest today, Chris Midgette, or better known as the Hunting Traveler. Chris is a lifelong hunter traveling across the country with his Boykin Spaniels, Traveler, and Cooper, chasing waterfowl and upland birds. Self-proclaimed as the worst duck caller east of the Mississippi, Chris is also an avid writer, and his work can be found in many outdoor journals and magazines. The Michigan Outdoors podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and a video edition on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you're not already, follow us on Instagram as well at the Michigan Out of Doors Pod. All right. Well, on that note, let's hop into policy. Justin, what's going on in the policy world?
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. So we talked about it a little bit last time, the solar array in Gaylord, the 420-acre lease. There's been some movement on that. The department is continuing to have an open comment period on it, but the company that was going to lease it pulled out, or that intended on bidding on it because there was going to be an open bidding process, pulled out. So they're going to run a comment period for about 90 days, probably till mid-ish April, end of March maybe, and then kind of decide where to go from there. But the bigger news is that they are halting all future consideration of solar leases, at least for the time being. They're going to kind of reassess their process, after getting all the public input, and see, what other options they have, or what they can do to kind of make it more palatable if this is something they wanted to try again in the future. At the end of the comment period, there still technically could be an RFP. They haven't made that decision yet. They're going to see what the comments say. I can't imagine there's going to be much positive that they're going to find in there. So there still technically could be an RFP for that 420 acres. Nothing's really off the table for that piece yet, but they are going to stop considering other pieces for the time being. So that's the update on the solar panel. They basically follow the recommendations that we provided them in our letter and through my private conversations with the director and some of their public lands folks. So I don't want to say I single-handedly saved that 420 acres, but
You're not the reason they listen to you. It's our membership is why they listen.
I know. That was the joke, Steve. If you let it land.
For MUCC, there you go.
But yeah, so they basically, though, they followed MUCC's recommendations, which is until like an actual solar siting process is made public and can face public scrutiny, they shouldn't consider these leases. So that is what's going on with that. Go ahead.
Said win.
When?
Like
win.
W-I-N, win.
Yeah. Gotcha. Win. It is a big win because we're not inherently anti-solar, but it needs to be places ill-suited for other lands. There needs to be, like, the process they use to select these sites needs to face public scrutiny, and they need to put out clear definitions. While it may be subjective at the time of crafting, at least then everybody would kind of have a base knowledge to work with. So that's the solar array stuff. Legislatively, they're in town. They're working on like the tip wage stuff, so it's far outside of MUCC's purview. Committee work will start in a couple weeks. Committee assignments are not really made yet. We have a pretty good idea who's going to be chairing our natural resources committees in the House, but we'll see which of the couple candidates gets it. And then we get to work. So we've been working on our legislative priorities to give you all a very small sneak peek into that. The big thing we're going to try and get done with this divided government is hunter safety in schools. So we're going to try and bring back those hunter safety bills from last session that had, I think it had 54 bipartisan co-sponsors in the House and passed unanimously out of the Senate committee. So it's primed to go. We also are going to work on commercial fishing modernization again. We tried to do it last year. The bill didn't really get any traction because if you remember, there was the bad commercial fishing bill, which would have allowed for the commercial take of like walleye, perch, bass, panfish, all sorts of other stuff. It was just generally a bad all-around bill. And again, our membership killed that. I sent 85,000 emails to the State House in a few days, and I don't know. Have I told the story of that on the air yet, Tyler? Do you remember?
I don't think you've told it on the podcast, no.
So
And
during
Chris,
that,
feel free to jump in and ask questions and be part of this conversation.
yeah.
Appreciate
If you
it.
haven't- I get lost in my wonky policy world, and
I like just listening because I keep up to date with it, so I appreciate it.
yeah. So that House Bill 5108 dropped. We sent all those emails, and we started scheduling meetings. And either Amy or myself, or the combination of us, met with, I think, over 24 of the 31 sponsors on that bill. And there's one day we go in and Amy's just like sick. Like you can just tell. And we have one meeting and we had enough time to go get coffee. And I look at her, I'm like, you need to go home. You can't be here. Like you are terrible. And she listened to me and she left. So then I go up to this next meeting and we're meeting with Bill Jackson, our contract lobbyist. And he's like, yeah, normally this legislator doesn't take lobbyist meetings. Like it's pretty odd. So, it's pretty cool that she's listening to you guys. I'm like, cool. So I go up there solo. And I give her my spiel on why that bill's a bad bill. And she just stops and goes, thank you for your pitch. Can you shut off the emails, please? I've been getting, we functionally shut down her office for 3 days. She was like very professionally chewing me out. And then she finished her rant and I just look at her and go, well, if you wanted to remove your name from the bill, we'd be happy to shut it off. One of your other representatives already done that. I said, but I do want you to know that it went national today and Meat Eater covered it this morning on their podcast. And her legislative director leaned back in her seat, threw her hands up, and rolled their eyes at me. So I got chewed out by a legislator for you guys doing so well at getting those emails out. So we killed that bill. We're working on that again. The last big legislative priority is kind of a general defensive proposal G. We don't want to lose hunting, trapping, angling opportunities because the legislature gets involved where they don't belong, and something ends up on the ballot. So our full legislative priorities will hopefully be out in the next couple weeks, or hopefully around the time committees start. So probably a week from when you hear this. The last policy thing is NRC's February 13th, but there's nothing for information or action, so it should be another short and sweet meeting.
There's been appointments, though, within the NRC.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, since the last time we talked, Jim Laporte was appointed shortly before Christmas, I think. Mm-hmm. And then just this past week, former Congressman Dan Kildee was appointed to the NRC. He is going to serve as the chair, replacing Tom Baird, who retired at the end of last year. So Dan Kildee is officially appointed to the NRC, technically subject to advice and consent of the Senate, but I doubt that they're going to hold a committee hearing for him. So there's still technically one vacancy. Dave Kozad's seat is technically expired, or term technically expired as of December 31st. Per statute, he is allowed to continue in that role until he is reappointed or an appointment.
Have you heard anything about a new candidate for his seat yet? Are there any talks?
No, nobody's really heard anything from what I know.
Do you think that the governor followed the recommendations we sent her in the letter not long ago about who an NRC member should be or what their background should be?
The appointment criteria?
I don't think so. I think that Kildee was in the pipeline longer than before we even sent our thing. I will say, we talked to the governor's team, we talked to the director, and we kind of let them know, not necessarily some concerns about Kildee, but concerns about what people are going to say about him should he be appointed. And I think that they definitely thought about it with a different lens as a result. I don't know much about Dan Kildee other than his congressional record. My understanding, he is a trout angler. I don't know if he hunts or anything to that nature. So we'll find that all out. We're working on getting some time with him ahead of the next commission meeting to get to know him a little bit as what he might be like as a commissioner. We try and do that with all the new commissioners. We've already met with Commissioner Laporte. And if Dave Kozad, he steps down or that position's filled elsewhere, we'll try and meet with his replacement as well.
Okay. All right. So that is pretty much all of policy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty slow for about 2 more weeks, and then it's going to be bonkers till June when the legislature really gets kicking. I guess the only other thing, the deer management initiative is dead. The new replacement is the deer advisory team, which have had their introductory meetings. Basically, all we did was elect chairs, and I serve on the upper and the lower in MUCC's stakeholder seat. So those have started. They are meant to be a lot more longer term than the DMI, which was very much, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, very rushed process.
So as things start to heat up later in the year, now's a good time to say sign up for the Conservation Insider or join MUCC, because when calls to actions come out, we're going to need voices, and we're going to need another 85,000 emails if there's a bad bill that we need to jump on. So share Get your friends involved, family, anybody who's an outdoors man or woman needs to be paying attention and waiting for Justin's call to action out there.
Yeah, if you go to mucc.org/policy-action-center, that's where you can sign up to get my call to actions. The other thing I'm going to try and do, time depending, is I'm going to try and put basically every bill that I'm tracking on our website. And so last session stuff is still up. So you can like click on this bill and you'll see MUCC's position and maybe one or two sentences about why we support that position. So like I just pulled up House Bill 4243 and I just wrote in there, this would require FFLs to carry civil liability insurance. Many FFLs, which MUCC is one, could simply not afford the insurance required by this legislation. And that would be why we don't support or what our position on it. So I'm going to try and utilize that more this year. So you can just go right there and get a quick glance of what we're watching. I can't promise everything's going to be up there, but I'm going to do my best to keep it pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
Policy.
Cool.
All right, and a big thank you to one of MUCC's newest partners, GK World Championship Calls. Chris, this is right up your alley. As a proud 100% Michigan-based company, GK has built a reputation for delivering customer service that is second to none. With some of the most accomplished callers in the world, they have been successful in winning every major title on the goose calling circuit. GK is also proud to be a sponsor of numerous hunting organizations all over North America that make it a priority to get the young men and women involved in the great sport of waterfowling. They strive to educate the youth on the importance of conservation, safety, and respect for the sport. MUCC members receive 20% off their order with our exclusive discount code found in your MUCC member portal.
Future podcast guest too, right?
Future podcast guests.
Yeah, that'll be
we'll
cool.
be on in the next month or two. Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks for joining again. I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, what your background is, where you come from, where you currently reside, and yeah, just everything about you.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on. Like I told you guys, I'm kind of new to Michigan, moved up here 2.5 years ago from Virginia. So what y'all do here for the podcast is great for me just to kind of stay on top of what's going on and I guess just better understand the landscape of, the seasons because they're different, obviously. Duck season back home in Virginia is still open. It goes till the end of January, so it's different. Really? They probably, it's mid to late January now, so they'll start getting blue bills and canvasbacks towards the end of January. It seems like they show up later and later every year down there. So I appreciate y'all doing this because it also, as far as the politics, and the laws and stuff that comes out, it helps me stay on top of it. Long story short, grew up in Virginia, went to college in South Carolina, then moved here, like I said, 2.5 years ago. Lifelong waterfowler. That's what I was raised on from my dad. And then got a little bit more into upland hunting about 6, 7, 8 years ago. Justin and I were kind of talking. It's hard to kill a duck in Virginia. Well, puddle duck. So in Virginia, if you build a duck blind on any river or lake or any body of water, no one can hunt within 500 yards of that duck blind for the rest of the season, as long as you tag it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that applies to Eastern Virginia, which is east of 95. And then it does not apply to the Eastern Shore of Virginia, which is that strip of land off the coast. But basically, for all intents and purposes, Eastern Virginia is basically all the blind laws. So that being said, every major river at almost every 500 yards is a blind. So it's hard to kill a duck. That led us about 15 years ago to get more into big diver spreads, sea duck hunting. But I'm not going to take my Boykin Spaniel out there on the big bay. So that led me to get more into upland hunting, which then that kind of delved into just hunting more across the U.S. and stuff like that. So, I do a little bit of deer hunting, but I wouldn't say I'm a good deer hunter. I'm more of a deer napper. I always seem to fall asleep in the deer stand and get woken up by someone else's shot or something like that. So I enjoy it, but I'd much rather chase the dogs and sit in a duck blind.
So where do you spend yourself finding most of your time? Is it upland hunting, waterfowl hunting?
This year,
50-50?
In the past, a lot more waterfowl. This year I did a lot more upland hunting just because still trying to find where to go up here. You guys, just in general, have so much more public land than back home. But it's just so much easier just to throw the dog and in the truck with a gun and go, grouse hunt. So that's just kind of a little bit easier. That way I don't take all the decoys and stuff like that. So this year was definitely heavier upland hunting. I didn't travel too much to hunt this year. I only went to North Dakota for, I guess, about a week. I used to go to North Dakota basically for a whole month. I'd duck hunt for 2 weeks and then pheasant hunt for about another week or a week and a half. And then prior to moving up here, which is kind of where the hunting traveler came from, my old job, I was a consultant. So I would travel, I'd leave my house on Sunday, work Monday, Tuesday, fly somewhere else, work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'd fly home. And I did that every week for about 10 years. And then towards the end of that, I kind of put one and one together and was like, well, instead of flying home, I'll just, fly to Mississippi and duck hunt for the weekend or something like that. So, yeah, I used to do a lot more traveling and hunting. But now that I'm in a better area, I don't have to travel as much. So, yeah, this year is heavy upland hunting this year.
How long do you think it's going to take to lose your accent? I can still hear it from
man.
That Michigan accent going.
My coworkers make fun of me because there's a couple different words that. So I work at a dealership, and they make fun of how I say oil. Oil change is how I'm supposed to say it.
If I worked with you, I'd make fun of it too.
So it doesn't come out too often, but yeah, especially when I'm drinking, then it comes out real heavy. Now my wife, she's from North Carolina, and she lives up here obviously with me, and man, she's got a thick twang, and anywhere we go, people are just like, oh, you're not from around here. And I think we'd been here about a week, and she came to visit me at work, and she came down, was talking to me and the guys, and she was like, yeah, I'm going down the street to that Mihar down the street. And I was like, what? She's like, Mihar. And I was like, Myers? And she's like, yeah, Myers. it's not Mihar, babe. So, yeah, we kind of stick out every now and then.
My stepdad is from Southern Illinois, like way down at the very bottom of Illinois, and it takes about 7 minutes when he gets back home to his brother and his friends.
Takes it back up. Yep.
Oh, dude, it comes back so thick. So even if you lose it, I'm sure it'll come back when you get home.
I went down to, I go home, I don't know, once every 6 months or so, but I went down to Seaweed down in Charleston 2 years ago and met up with a bunch of college buddies of mine from Charleston. And yeah, the twang definitely came back real quick. It doesn't take too long.
We'll add it into drinking too, probably.
Oh yeah, that definitely does it for sure.
So how did the season go for you this year? Did you feel, you've been in Michigan a while now, are you starting to kind of get the hang of where to hunt around here and how to hunt a little differently?
It was a struggle. So I have Boykin Spaniels, and one's retired. He's 15, and so I got my younger one. He's 7. And so, there's some grouse in Virginia, but I mean, maybe like 5, not many. So we did a lot of walking this year for a whole lot of not shooting. But I still consider it success. I mean, we didn't kill a bunch of grouse, but just learning the areas of where they go. I mean, you guys know, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, but until you get out there and actually see what they're living in and where you can find them. Last year, I think I still traveled so much. I just didn't hunt as much here. So I wasn't learning as much about this area. So yeah, this year, numbers wise, not the best. We shot a lot of pheasants, but that was North Dakota. We shot a few wild pheasants here in Michigan. But the grouse was a lot of miles walked for a handful of shots, but I still consider a good season for sure.
I got grouse spots, man. What I don't have is dogs.
I heard you.
I don't have dogs, and I don't have any talent with a shotgun, but I know where to find grouse.
Yeah, I can scare them, that's for sure.
In my old cabin, I mean, you drive back, it's nothing to flush 5-6 grouse just from the road driving by.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
drop them up in, Justin.
Well, I laughed. I was walking one day and I saw some people walking. I guess maybe they're camping or something. And so I walked up to them just to make sure I knew where, kind of what their game plan was, and I'd stay out of their way. And, the guy said, what are you hunting for? I said, oh, grouse. He's like, yeah, I haven't seen any grouse around here. And then he goes, I seen a bunch of partridge though. And I was like, well, I think they're the same thing, but okay. I forgot y'all call them pats up here. So I had to figure that one out real quick, but no, it was a good season. Did a little bit of duck hunting. Obviously, there's some public land opportunities close to me in my area. And my first time duck hunting up here was last year. And I remember the guy that I was with said, shoot whatever you want till about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then we'll just shoot the greenheads. And I kind of looked at him like he was crazy. And I said, what? And he was like, yeah, just shoot whatever you want. And then about 9 o'clock, we'll just wait for the mallards to come in. I was like, dude, we don't, in Virginia, you shoot whatever comes in, whether it's a merganser, bufflehead, like you're shooting them. So yeah, it's definitely been a breath of fresh air for the public land opportunities up here.
Yeah,
All right.
green wave at 9 o'clock.
Justin, ask.
You know what I'm going to ask.
Same thought I had. You got to ask him.
Do you eat your mergangsters?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all
There you
you
go.
waterfowl elitists out there,
Yeah.
you're sleeping. I mean, I don't want to say it's the best, but it's edible. All this, I wouldn't feed it to my dog. Yeah, you would.
I'm a strong believer that if you put enough, bacon, barbecue sauce, or marinate something long enough, you can make it taste fine. And, like I said, we shot a lot of sea ducks in Virginia before I moved up here. And I had an oyster roast. And, of course, I was cooking the bacon wrapped duck poppers and stuff. And everybody was telling me how much they loved them. And my dad leaned over about an hour into it and goes, "These sea ducks?" I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, I can catch a little taste of them, but you know how to cook it. It'll turn out fine."
The average person won't get that, though.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
We eat a lot of smallmouth bass, and people will be like, "Oh, I never want to eat bass," and then we'll feed it to them, be like, "Oh, was this bluegill?" Be like, "No, it's smallies." So,
No, I think it's just like anything else. If you know how to prepare it, you know how to cook it,
right.
and you don't tell them, they'll have no idea.
Yeah, it's a constant debate for us. So, and Justin had it over the fire with no seasoning.
Yeah,
He
we
said it
just
was
we just
fine.
threw it on a griddle in a little bear
Right.
pat with some salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic, just to see what it tasted like. And I didn't get the hate. It was the first time I had ever had it, so I didn't get it. It tasted like a cheap Walmart steak, is what I described it as.
That's fair.
Yeah, like it wasn't
That's fair. Yeah.
enjoyable to chew on, but it tasted fine. Did you go up to the UP at all with the dogs?
No, I haven't made it up that far north. I've only driven through. No, I think I took one trip up there to visit during the summer. Yeah, I really haven't done any hunting that far north, to be honest, not even remotely close. I mean, obviously, from what I've been told, the farther north you go, the better. But me being somewhat lazy, I drive an hour and a half north, and I find decent numbers of grouse. So I'm like, I'll do that until I
say
can
that
find
you're lazy, because a big part of what you do is literally drive across the country as the hunting traveler to and hunt in different states. So I don't know if I would define that as lazy. But
Yeah,
so where have you gone in the last year? I mean, what are some of your top destinations? If you could pick, are you going right to the south? Or are you going back to Virginia? Or what do you prefer?
A lot of it's just opportunities and networking with people. So my buddies from Virginia and I, we've done a North Dakota duck hunting trip for the last maybe 8 years. That's a long haul. Obviously, it's cut in half now since I live up here, so I just meet them. But with the trailer, it normally takes us anywhere between 24 to 28 hours to get there. Then we just freelance. I mean, the first couple of years, we literally just looked at the map, found water, went there. If we found ducks, we stayed. If not, we found another area, found the closest hotel, and made it work.
So you just bring out the full decoy trailer and just kind of go wherever, all public or?
All public. I mean, let me rephrase. Public and then knocking on doors. But yeah, it's
the year the floods when they had all the standing corn and nothing could be harvested.
Yeah, that was pretty good year. The only problem with that year is that the ducks were so spread out because there's so much food and but it was nice because you're just literally just standing in flooded cornfields. Now we've hunted the same area probably going on 4 or 5 years in a row now. So we've gotten to know the farmers. I mean, we go out there and we bring them. My buddy's a big fisherman, so he brings fresh fish, frozen fish from Virginia. Then we'll bring them peanuts and stuff like that. So we've built up a relationship with a lot of the farmers. But yeah, we did that. I've been to Wyoming for sage grouse. We did that, I think, year before last. That was an experience, just a completely different environment. Took us about a day or two to kind of figure out what the hell we were doing and where to find them. I guess 2 weeks ago, I went down North Carolina and hunted Lake Mattamuskeet, which is pretty historical waterfowling area in North Carolina. That was a long drive. I worked till about noon, drove down there, got there at 3 o'clock, met my dad and my father-in-law at 3:45, hunted, did some sightseeing, went to a bar, went to bed, hunted the next day till noon, and then drove back to Michigan. So that was a quick turnaround.
That's a turn and burn.
Yeah, that was. I'm not as young as I used to be, so I can't do that anymore. That kind of sucks.
You said you bring the farmers peanuts. Do you guys do boiled peanuts down where you're from? Is that down there?
It's not as big in Virginia. Once you hit like that North Carolina, South Carolina border, then it becomes real big. I have a can of boiled peanuts in my office right now upstairs. So
Okay.
I definitely keep them on hand and ready. But yeah, as far as favorite place, it just kind of depends. Obviously, you can't beat the Dakotas. The first year that I took my dog Traveler up there, he probably retrieved a couple hundred birds. So you can't beat that as far as just exposure to birds and just seeing that many. But then going to, Wyoming was just completely different, the sage grouse in that whole area. So I don't know. As far as favorite, it just kind of depends on, I've hunted Wisconsin, I've hunted Iowa. I haven't made it down to the Southwest. I was supposed to go last year and just couldn't make it. I guess it depends on what I'm looking for. If it's number of birds or if I'm looking for a different experience, I guess is kind of the best way to phrase it.
How do the dogs like the sage hunting? Like, I mean, if you've been to Wyoming, it's just a sea of sage out there.
Yeah.
It's such a different environment. How'd the dogs do with that?
The dogs handled it fine. I think it was more or less us just figuring out and trying to pattern the birds. We had, I think, 2 or 3 poodle pointers, a GSP, English setter, 2 Goldens, I think a lab, and then 2 Boykins. So we kind of had the gamut. All that whole group of dogs is hunted together for a pretty good number of times. And so we got it pretty well with the pointers range out, obviously out in front, the flushers stay close to us. And then the only problem is Traveler has now picked up on, if I call him to a heel, he knows that a pointer is on a point, and then he gets all excited and starts yapping because he gets all excited. So I got to try to nip that in the bud. But yeah, the dogs didn't have much of an issue as much as we did as far as patterning the birds and where they like to go in the mornings versus the afternoons and stuff like that. But it was cool. We were supposed to be there, I think, for 5 or 6 days. And I want to say the 3rd or 4th day, we just kind of decided to pack up and go because obviously we wanted to all shoot a sage grouse, but then I don't know if y'all have ever hunted them, but they're not that hard to shoot. Like, it doesn't have this explosive flush. They're kind of like slow footballs in my personal opinion. So we shot a handful and we're like, all right, that's good. We did what we wanted. And then we went up in the mountains trying to find some grouse, but we didn't find any of those. But yeah, the dogs handled it well. I think, in my personal opinion, if you have a dog on enough wild birds, after a while, they just kind of figure it out, whether it's, taking the dog from sharp-tailed grouse hunting in North Dakota and then coming back and, rough grouse hunting in Michigan, they figure it out that they can't range that far. I mean, dogs just have they know a lot more than what we give them credit for, I think.
Do you think the waterfowling and like retrieving ducks is, do they complement each other when you're doing upland bird, or is there some different techniques? Because I know some guys who have dogs that do both and they seem to kind of favor one over the other. But do you find that they work together when you're training, or you got to really lock them in on the species you're going for that day?
It's a good question. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday. Because he's got a young Boykin and he's doing both at the same time. And we were just talking about how it is hard for a dog to, and I do both with my dog, where, like I said, for those first 2 weeks of North Dakota, he's duck hunting every day, just sitting at my side or sitting in his blind and just chilling. And then obviously only going when we shoot something, versus him knowing that, okay, that next week, now he's got to be independent of me. And he does a pretty good job of checking in, but I've seen in like, we just had the Boykin Spaniel Upland Nationals in North Carolina this past weekend, and I haven't run a trial in a couple of years, but I have seen dogs, I guess to kind of your point, that were so retriever side trained that once they got in an upland field trial, that dog didn't know how to hunt for itself. It was constantly looking at the handler to go, and the guy was giving him hand signals just like it was a blind retrieve. And I remember he was got dock points for that because the dog just didn't have that independence that you kind of want in an upland dog.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible. If it was up to me, I would train the waterfowl portion first, get that basic obedience, because then if you go upland, as long as you have a good recall, the dog will eventually figure it out. As long as you can call that dog back to you, you're going to be okay, depending on the breed, I should say. But yeah, Traveler does a good job of turning that off and on. Now I will say it's much harder to go upland hunting to then waterfowl hunting, because you're used to running around and acting crazy, to then just sitting and chilling. Yeah, the hardest part I remember was the first year I took to North Dakota. We had a great year, and then we went to Virginia duck hunting, and we don't pull the trigger all day, so he's just sitting in the duck blind, just chilling all day long, just pissed off, and so that was hard for him. But yeah, it can be tough, I think, to get that transition for sure.
How much success have you had in those field trials before? Have you placed pretty high, or how?
No, I hate those trials, man. Let me phrase. I love them what they do. I personally hate them because I get so damn nervous up on the line. My dad was really big. So my dad got his first Boykin in 78, I think, which they only made the breed stand or the Boykin Spaniels Society in 1977. So he was one of the early guys to get like a official Boykin, if you will. And he always ran trials and hunt tests, and he loved them. I love watching them. I'll watch my dog. I would prefer if, someone else would handle the dog, because I just get so damn nervous at the line. But they definitely serve a purpose as far as making sure that we're breeding and raising good dogs and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, he's got a couple titles, but nothing crazy. We haven't done. I would normally lean towards the hunt tests because I'm competitive with myself, but not necessarily my dog. So I like a hunt test, which is more pass fail, versus a trial, which is first, second, third.
Yeah. So your whole family's done Boykins, and is that so? It's a generational thing with you guys.
Yeah, Dad got his first. He graduated college and wanted to get a bird dog, and the first he wanted to get a lab because he was a big duck hunter, and my mom said no, she didn't want the tail whacking everything. And he also went to college in South Carolina like I did, and the state dog of South Carolina is the Boykin Spaniel. That's where it was bred, and or where it originated from. And so yeah, that's how we got our first Boykin, and that's what we had ever since then. So my sister's she's had 3. My brother had 1, and I've had 2 myself. So yeah, we all have them.
Let me ask you this too. I mean, a Boykin is not the most common dog, right? It obviously is a hunting dog. It serves a purpose. What makes the Boykin so special, and what is it that you personally enjoy so much about this breed versus any other breed?
The personality for sure. So we have a club up here, the Great Lakes Boykin Spaniel Club, which is tied in with the Boykin Spaniel Society. There's probably, I want to say maybe 200-ish registered Boykins in Michigan right now. There's not a ton. It's, for better or worse, it's growing in popularity. Kind of almost what's happening to the cocker is people see a cute, cuddly dog, and so more and more people are breeding it to just be a pet, which is somewhat unfortunate in my opinion.
My wife did that.
Yeah. So the Boykin Spaniel Society has done a really good job of just making sure, as best as they can, to kind of protect the breed. They have all the recommended health tests. They have a preferred breeder list, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a hunting dog, but it does mean that they did the right health tests to make sure they're passing down good bloodlines and good genetics. But as far as the Boykin itself, obviously not as big as a Springer, a little bit bigger than a Cocker. So you have that Spaniel mentality, which some people love and other people hate. The breed itself is really a mutt. It's got American Water Spaniel, Cocker Spaniel, Chessie. There is some pointer in the breed, but it is bred to be an aggressive flusher. Like I've seen some puppies that actually try to point with their pups, but they're supposed to be a flushing dog, and that's within the breed standards itself. But as far as what sets them apart, I mean, like I said, their personality, they are versatile in the fact that, like I said, I can take Traveler and go hunt ducks, and then in the afternoon go chase grouse or pheasants. There are some guys.
What's the size of a Boykin? Like, what are your Boykins weigh?
So anywhere, I mean, it can range because they are a mutt, anywhere from 30 to 45. Okay, Traveler, yeah, he's on the bigger side. He was pushing 50 the other day. But I wanted a bigger dog because I duck hunt so much. There are some smaller ones that are, like I said, pushing just right around 30 pounds, and they're going to struggle with the mallard just because mallards half their weight. And then some of them can have a single kind of straight coat. It always has to be brown, but then other ones, so like my older one, Cooper, he has a single straight coat, and then Traveler has that curly and then a double coat under it. So there's a lot of differentiation within the breed itself because it is a mutt. So you kind of get, even out of the same litter, you can have single coats and double coats. They're fun to train if you're patient. They can do what a lab can do, just a lot slower. I mean, obviously they're not going to be able to hunt today because it's just too cold for a spaniel. But they can retrieve a goose. It's just going to be a lot slower.
I was going to ask if they were able to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, travelers retrieve swans and geese. Again, it was just a lot slower and stuff, but they can do it. If I was going to field hunt geese all the time, yeah, I'm probably not going to get a Boykin. Can they do it? Yeah, but it's not their bread and butter like a lab or a Chessie. If you're going to go hunt pheasants, I mean, Boykins are great because instead of a lab or Chessie that's pushing through those cattails, they can actually just tunnel through them just like a cocker. So they do have a lot of versatility in what they can and can't do. I was going to say something too, as far as, I mean, then there's the spaniel mentality. Some of them can be extremely stubborn because they have a lot of Chessie in them. And then other ones, like my older one, Cooper, he's super soft. If I put a little growl in my voice, you would have thought I just beat him. I mean, he just cowers, and that's just his mentality. He's just soft. Love him to death. He's my old boy, but yeah, I mean, they're fun dogs. Yeah, they can do a lot. Just, I think some guys think that you can train them just like a lab, and you got to be a little bit more patient with them. Not to say, I sent Traveler to a lab trainer and he did fine, but a lab, in my experience, you can do the same drill all day long, and that lab is just as happy doing it the 100th time as he is the first time. A Boykin, maybe after 15 or 20, he gets a little bored because they have that spaniel ADHD, and he might shut down on you a little bit because he just gets bored quicker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting you say, I've never trained a dog, so I don't know, or at least not for hunting. I have a golden retriever myself, but it's interesting to hear that you have to train dogs differently based on the breed for different types of hunting. Because I guess in my mind, I had just thought there was probably some Pavlovian way to train, to accomplish a goal. Mm-hmm. I assumed it would probably be more standard, but that's really interesting to hear that you treat a Boykin a little bit different than a lab.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense based off personality because every dog, even at the same.
Right. And that's within like you said, within the breed, you're going to have different personalities of those dogs. And I mean, you might have one line of lab, for instance, that's a field trial line, just hard charging, high octane jet fuel lab. And then you could have one that's just a softer, more complacent lab. Even within that, that breed, you're going to train them a little bit differently. And of course, we're speaking in generalities here, but generally you're going to have to be a little bit patient with a Boykin. They tend to not mature as fast as a lab also. Because I think that's what I run into in my world is just a lot of guys that have had labs before, and then they decide they want something smaller. The wife wants something smaller. Maybe without the tail, it's going to whack everything around. So they decide to go Boykin. And I don't try to talk them out of it, but I try to make sure that they know what they're getting into because they are little rascals. They're not quite as crackheadish as a cocker, but they can be. So they can be, mine. But I guess it goes back to any dog. If it's got structure and well trained, I mean, if I'm sick or God forbid, if I'm a little hungover the next day, I want to sleep all day, my dogs are just fine sleeping because they had that structure and that training. But generally, yeah, they're going to be a little bit more slower to mature.
So what's the process for training a dog? I mean, speaking very generally, I've never trained a dog to be a bird dog. When does it start? How long does it take? When do you really feel like they're not full maturity, but when do you think they've kind of got it and understand it? What does the whole process look like? So
I'll say all this because I'm not a professional dog trainer. I've been around them enough to know that I know enough to be dangerous. What I would say is, I mean, and I hate to give a cliche answer, but the training starts as soon as you get them, whether it's, feeding time, crate training, just that basic sit, stay here. I have helped guys try to train their dogs in the past, and they had a little puppy and they're trying to do blind retrieves, and the dog doesn't even come when it's called. And I'm like, you got to start with the basics right there. So many guys watch too much YouTube and they want to do all that super sexy cool stuff, and I'm like, dude, your dog doesn't even sit when you tell it to sit. Like, start with the basic stuff and then go from there. And then I think a lot of times too is we get ego involved, and like I wrote an article. Top 5 ways to ruin your bird dog, because I do know how to do that. I might not know how to train it really well, but I can ruin it in a heartbeat. And so many guys, the ego gets involved and they want to show off, or the dog sits when you blow that whistle to sit to a whistle and it does it once and they think they know how to do it. I'm like, the dog doesn't know it just because it did once. The dog knows it when it does it every single time. And Yeah, so as far as the basics, it's just basic obedience first, and then it's building up that excitement to retrieve. A lot of guys will jump the gun and they'll start throwing marks in the backyard or throwing a bumper in the backyard. What I always do with my pups is I took them in a hallway in the yard or in the house and threw either a frozen sock or a toy or maybe even a tennis ball. And then as the pup brought it back to me, because he had nowhere else to go, he has to come back to me. Instead of taking it, you just pet him. Because if I start taking it, then he wants to play keep away. So when he came back to me, I would just kind of grab him, pet him, and then eventually he would just spit it out because I'd be petting him. And so you just build that drive. And then, just little steps from there. Eventually, once he does that on regular, then you take him outside. I think too many guys jump the gun, like I said, instead of building that solid foundation. And then I guess the other thing is they like to train too hard or too long. A dog doesn't need an hour-long training session. They just need maybe 15 minutes. And then, the best, I'm trying to remember this phrase that I heard by a dog trainer years ago. He said, something like the dog's not doing what you're not telling him to do because he doesn't want to. He just doesn't understand what you're wanting him to do. And that's what training is getting the dog to understand the concept of what you want him to do. And I've seen it before too, where, I was trying to get Traveler to do something and he starts yapping. And it's not because he doesn't want to, he's just confused. And so I had to take a step back, calm down, don't get frustrated with him. It's my fault. And then do something easy. And you got to always end your training sessions on a good note, even if it's just, having him pick up a simple mark, having him do that, end on a good note and go put it up. I think there's so many different programs out there that are good. I always tell people find a program and stick with it, whether it's, Cornerstone Gun Dog, for Boykins, there's Brown Dog Academy. There's tons of training books out there. You just got to follow something.
This sounds like raising kids.
Yeah. I mean, I always think, I don't have kids myself, but I always think of like training a dog is just like a faster and obviously less intense version of a kid, because it's structure and discipline and training.
I've described it as raising a kid is like having a dog that slowly learns how to talk.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
So Chris, you mentioned personality of your Boykins, and that's, you think you capture a lot of that on your Instagram page. And the Instagram is full of really cool photos. What led you to kind of start that? I know the website, and we'll get into some of the writing that you do as well, but that Instagram page is really cool to follow. So you show a lot of their personality, I feel like, in those photos that you do. What's your favorite part, or what was the genesis of wanting to share that story?
I don't know. It's a cliche, but so many guys say, they'd much rather take pictures or carry the camera than carry the gun. But I think it does, I'm to that point now too, where there was times in North Dakota where I left the gun in the truck and just took my camera, took pictures of the guys and their dogs. I have found out, FYI, it's a great way to get invited on hunting trips, because every time I've brought my camera and got a cool picture of someone else's dog, they're like, dude, you can come whenever you want. Just take pictures of the dogs. I'm like, cool, right to that. I like that. So yeah, it is a good way to get invited back. But honestly, it just kind of started. I always liked, even as a kid, I remember having the, a 12 megapixel digital camera back in the early 2000s and taking pictures and stuff like that. I was never good at it. I'm still not a great photographer. There's so many nuances that I don't know or understand. But what I found when I got more into writing was every editor always wanted pictures with my stories. And if I didn't have pictures, I could have a really, really good story, but if I didn't have pictures, they might not take it. So that's when I realized, okay, I got to start getting pictures to go with these stories. So kind of those two things kind of went together a little bit. But also everyone just likes seeing pictures of dogs. No one wants to see my ugly mug up there, so it just kind of led to that.
I noticed there was very few of the two of you together. It's mostly the dog and just, and their expressions change in all those photos. It's actually really cool to see kind of how the dog works or what they're thinking as they're, as you're taking photos of them. It's pretty cool.
Well, that night, I'm lucky enough to hunt with a lot of different breeds, because all my buddies have different breeds, and, every breed hunts a little bit differently. Every dog hunts a little bit differently. And I mean, one of my favorite pictures that I got was, I think it was last year before last, I can't remember. But my buddy in North Dakota, he had a young poodle pointer, and Greta got her first point. He flushed it, shot it. It was the first Sharpie, and I got a picture of him like throwing his fist up in the air, and I just happened to take that picture. And then, when we got back to the RV, we saw it, and that was cool to capture that moment for him. It was just raw, it wasn't staged. It was all emotion as far as just him being excited and seeing that growth and all the time that he put in that dog and stuff like that. So, there's a lot to be said as far as the pictures that I can get with guys and the memories that's attached to. I can look at a picture of Traveler and be like, oh, I remember where that hunt was and stuff like that. So that's what I really like about it.
What do you shoot with camera wise?
So honestly, up until 2 months ago, I was just shooting with a cheap Rebel T5, I think, that I bought 8 years ago it was a camera pack for $500.
I had the same one.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, people ask me and I'm like, don't get me wrong. There's those professional photographers that are just doing remarkable and just amazing work with really nice glass and a good camera. But you can get good pictures with just a cheapo $500 camera. I did just upgrade into a mirrorless R50 about a month or so ago, and I can see the difference. But yeah, you don't need anything super crazy fancy.
No, camera technology's gotten so incredible. Like even this weekend at the show, or last weekend at the show, I was using my iPhone to take video, and you can get a depth of field. You can set the f-stop. I mean, it's crazy because I remember too. Yeah, I think I actually shot with a T3i, so even older than what you had. And I think, it was 10, 12 megapixels, maybe 14. And nowadays it's.
I feel pretty personally attacked right now with my 360p fixed resolution webcam.
Yeah, the cameras we're talking about are better than what you're using.
Yeah, I'm aware. I could probably plug my phone in and be a lot better off.
Yeah. No. So how do you like then? I mean, it's really interesting to look at the dichotomy of because Alan Crater as well, right? Yeah. He's a former podcast guest. Yep. And what he likes to do is obviously write about these encounters and these experiences. But I do think it's interesting to kind of look at the difference of remembering an experience through writing and remembering an experience through imagery, because a picture paints 1,000 words. But what do you kind of prefer if you're going back and looking and you want to remember a hunt from 10 years ago? Do you find more joy in maybe reading an article that you had written about it, or maybe just a journal entry that you had written, or do you enjoy looking at the pictures and trying to actually relive that memory?
That's a good question. I'd probably say imagery. I'm more of a visual person. Yeah, Alan's a phenomenal writer, and he's helped me out a ton since I moved up here, especially. He's edited a couple articles. John Osborne has done the same. So yeah, I would think a lot of my writing is just either funny, goofy stuff. There's a few informational stuff, but yeah, I would say for me personally, if I'm going to try to remember a hunt, it's probably going to be a picture. Just because that's typically, I don't write a whole lot about my hunting stories unless something went terribly, terribly wrong, because that's typically what we can laugh about. I'm not, at least I haven't written any articles that are like, I don't know, this fantastic hunt where we bagged a bunch of birds and stuff like that. Normally my writing is, like I said, when something goes wrong, like the engine didn't work or the motor didn't work, and Dad and I had to haul the boat, through the marsh, and he pushed me too far. I couldn't swim and stuff like that when I was a kid. Good upbringing stories that were slightly traumatizing as a child, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like the excerpt
no photos of those
from Craters Breaking Sticks, where they're talking about driving that truck up into the mountains and just getting rained on and being miserable and all of those. Yeah. So to get into your writing a little bit, I mean, what kind of got you started writing? I mean, where do you find motivation? What's the background of you wanting to write?
So my dad was a big reader. Growing up, he had a lot of Nash Buckingham's books. Some Gene Hill, who's my favorite writer. So I would read those a lot growing up. And then honestly, it got started. Project Upland, I guess they brought it back. The Hunting Dog Confidential magazine was out. And so I was talking to an editor one time, and I said, hey, y'all aren't talking about Boykins enough, or actually they hadn't mentioned them at all. And she said, oh, you should write an article for us. And I was like, I'm not a writer. And so that kind of led me to start thinking about maybe writing a story. So I remember I was on a flight. I maybe had one or two many bourbons. And so I started writing a story about hunting with Dad. And the Boykin Spaniels Society magazine needed articles, so they published that. Well, Jen, the editor of Hunting Dog Confidential, saw it and said, hey, write us a story and kind of mold the story within explaining the breed and the Boykin Spaniel. So that kind of led me to writing. At first, I remember she sent me a contract and I was reading it and I was like, oh, I got to pay to get this published. And she was like, no, you idiot, we're paying you. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I was just so completely lost to how this whole thing worked. Yeah, I'm not the smartest man in the world. And so, yeah, that just kind of led me to gain a little bit of confidence. So now what I do is, whether it's talking to you guys or just talking to people in general, if I have a thought of a story, I write it down on my phone and then typically I'll go home, maybe have a bourbon or 3 and then start writing. And then I edit it once I'm a little bit more sober and can actually understand what the hell I was trying to get put across. But I write to mostly entertain, try to entertain people in the off season, especially, or things that people can relate to, whether it's, you know, the dog doing something stupid in the field or me doing something stupid, you know, stuff that people can laugh at. You know, like I said, my favorite writer is Gene Hill. So not that I would compare myself to him, but I try to have some sort of lighthearted humor in there that he had. But yeah, it's, I don't know if you guys have done any writing, but it's not as easy as what I thought it would be. You know, I thought it was, you come with an idea, you write it, it gets published, and it's so many more steps than that within the editing process, or even just submitting it to magazines can be, I mean, some of these magazines are working out a year in advance. Like Upland Almanac published one of mine, but they had that story for a year because they're already pre-planned for so long. So, yeah.
Wait, some magazines don't wait till 5 days before it needs to print? Like,
No, yeah.
Like ours does?
Yeah. It's,
Which is not our editor's fault. I want that in the public record.
Right.
It is.
yeah, you better.
It is all of
Right,
us.
Tony.
They get cranky. So,
Yeah, it is. It is not Tony's fault. It is. He goes, this is the last day I need something by, and then usually he gets it 3 days after that. So,
yeah, I'm guilty of that
I hate
myself.
writing, Chris. I hate it.
It's
The
hard.
thing- Yeah, the thing I do to try and make it fun is I try and sneak South Park quotes into all my articles.
There you go. There you go.
And see how far I can push it before I get in trouble.
Right.
So it hasn't all got past the censors, but sometimes it does.
Well, the hard part, and I think Alan talked about this too, is, or maybe it was John. But you know, it's one thing. I mean, even in a podcast, you can say one dumb thing, and you know, people jump on it, and then, especially in writing too, you know, you're really. And I'm not an emotional person by all means, at least not, you know, verbally, but you're really putting yourself out there in your writing. And so that's, you know, I think Alan talked about it. You're really kind of feeling vulnerable when you put, you know, certain articles out there or certain feelings. I wrote an article about, you know, my older dog Cooper, and just, you know, seeing his eyes cloud up, and, you know, he's 15 now. And so he's moving slow with a little gimp and stuff like that. And so that was an emotional article for me to write. But yeah, I felt very vulnerable. And then, like I said, you got the story written, then you could submit it, a magazine picks it up, then the editor might send it back to you 4 or 5 times. And then you got to wait for it to get published. So yeah, it's a harder process than I think what a lot of people think of.
So I know you have a lot of your stuff on your website, thehoneytraveler.com. Where else are some of your articles? Where can people find some of your publications? I know you've got your bookshelf on your website and all that great stuff, but your personal posts, but where are some of the places you've written for?
So Strung published one recently, The Unachievable Post-Hunt Nap. That was written in anger at my wife. I've been grouse hunting all day, and I was just, you know, when you're heading home from a hunt and you're like, all right, all I want to do is go kick my boots off, sit on the couch and take a nap. I just sat down. I was about to fall in that sleep, and she was like, weren't you going to clean the garage today? And I was like, you son of a. And so while I was cleaning the garage, I started coming up with the story idea of, you know, how pissed off I was. So yeah, Strong Magazine picked up one, Upland Almanac, I have one, Hunted Dog Confidential. Then there's a couple websites, Feathers and Whiskey, Wildfowl Mag, Wing and Clay, which is also a Michigan publication. They just published one, and then I got one coming out with their next magazine with them as well. So yeah, I kind of disperse, and then the one that I do write every quarter for is the Boykin Spaniel magazine, just because they're near and dear in my heart. So I write for them every quarter.
We're gonna have to get you in Michigan Outdoors magazine and let
I'd be happy to.
our readers, you know, get a taste of it too and get a feel for it.
Does your wife hunt with you?
No, oh God, no. She is interesting story. She's allergic to anything from a cow. So whether it's the steak, butter, anything from a cow. So because of that, she just doesn't eat a whole lot of meat. Now her dad hunts, and she'll eat venison, and she likes it. She's not a huge fan of duck, but I remember when we first started dating, and I came back home with some North Dakota pheasants, and I was cooking them for her, and she ate them, and she was like, "What is this?" And I said, "Oh, it's pheasant." She was like, "You can go shoot those whenever you want." I said, "Okay, roger that."
Okay.
So I was like, "Done. That's all I need." Yeah, so she doesn't hunt. She respects it. She understands. I mean, she's happy that we're using the animal. I got a buddy here at work that takes all my feathers and ties flies with them and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
Yeah, she's not against it, but yeah, she definitely doesn't do it herself.
Yeah.
You want me to ask again so she doesn't hear, "Oh God, no"?
No, she understands. Yeah.
All right.
I've asked her multiple times, and she's like, "Absolutely not." I'm like, okay, that's fair. So
yeah.
You keep bringing up bourbon, which I'm a fan of. I was just in Louisville and did a big part of the bourbon trail. What's your favorite bourbon, or do you have a go-to for yourself for celebrating hunts?
I got a couple. So my dad, and I got it from him too. He's a bourbon snob. My dad used to tell me as a kid that he had a list of bourbons that he would carry around with him because God forbid he used his phone nowadays. And yeah, he actually has a handwritten list of bourbons that he's tried, and then the flip side of the piece of paper is ones that he wants to try, and he just crosses them out every time he goes to a bar or any distillery. So yeah, I got his bourbon snobbishness from him. As far as my favorites, I think, especially there's some that are just stupid expensive that aren't really good or as good as what you would think. But I like Angel's Envy. That's a good one. Four Roses is a good one.
I've had that one.
Jefferson's is good. Go ahead.
Have you had Roasted Roost at all?
I have not heard of that one.
Buzzard's Roost. It's down in Louisville. It's on Main Street. We were there. That was a good one. They had like a single that they were talking about how it's a toasted barrel instead of a charred barrel. And so Buzzard's Roost was a good one. And then we also had Bardstown. Have you had? Yeah,
Bardstown's good. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, bourbon just exploded in popularity, 15-ish years ago? So it's a lot easier to find good quality bourbons. The only problem is the prices went up with them too a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will say also...
Steve puts cherry Coke in his bourbon because he doesn't like the hot flavor.
No, I was taught by the distiller, a couple drops of water in there.
I have,
yeah. So I got a whole crash course over the weekend.
Have you guys had Walleye Run whiskey? It's over in they make it on the west coast of Michigan. They have two. I've tried two of their bottles that are really good pours. I was supposed to share one of them, and I finished the first bottle in probably like 3 days. It was I was like, oh, this is not good. But yeah, I don't mind a little brown water every now and then, and especially if I'm reading like an old hunting book or something like that. It's that's typically what I do is I'll read a little bit while I'm drinking, and then I start writing because I get in that creative juices going, if you will.
That's awesome.
Nice. All right. We have any other questions for Chris?
No, man, it's cool to get to hear your story, and a transplant from the South, but happy to have you as a Michigander. And you know about the whole Yoopers and Trolls thing, right?
We did figure that one out. Yeah. Cause I follow some of these Facebook groups, and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about a troll for? And so, I had to figure that one out. I did use a snowblower, not this snow, but we got one about a couple weeks ago. And I was out of my driveway, and my neighbor came out and saw me shoveling. He was like, "You want to use my snowblower?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't even know what that is. Like, we don't have those in the South." And so I thought it was like a backpack blower. And yeah, he came over with this thing, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is cool."
Well, here's the real question to test. What part of Michigan are you from?
What? Oh,
we did learn how to do this. Yeah, we got it.
There you go. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, I'll have to get you up north sometime up over here.
Okay. All right.
Show you where all those grouse are.
Yeah, it's.
We go grouse hunting during the day and go catch the biggest bluegill of your life in the evening.
Nice. I did go steelhead fishing
talking about this
in March.
Chris. It's not real. It's not a real place.
It's not. It's a
well, you have
place.
to go. You have to go hunting in order to do these things, Steve.
This bluegill thing.
No, it's been an enjoyable transition for sure. I mean, like I said, y'all have just so much public opportunities up here, whether it's hunting or fishing and stuff like that. So I knew there was good hunting up in this area, but not to the extent of what it is. So, and then like I said, with y'all's podcasts and stuff like that, and there's just so many different outdoor organizations here. It's been definitely refreshing. I mean, where I came from, Virginia, hunting and fishing, it's tough. Either because of the blind laws or just the laws in general. I mean, there's been local rivers that were shut down to hunting because of the noise ordinance. And so the shotguns would be too loud, and that's how they got hunting shut down on certain rivers and stuff like that. So, it's been refreshing coming up here and having all these opportunities.
Here's another question too, to segue into our next segment. Have you been ice fishing yet?
No. I remember the first time I ever saw it, I think I was in Minneapolis. And I'd flown in and I was driving to my store to go work at, and I was like, what the hell are these guys doing out here? And they had I realize now they're called ice castles, but I was like, what the hell? They got trucks on the ice, man. I was so thrown off by this. So I feel like I need to, because I do love Grumpy Old Men. I mean, it's a great movie. So I feel like at some point, and I do watch, Escanaba into Moonlight. I do watch that every year for you guys.
Yeah.
So I'm learning these things. So no, I have not been ice fishing. It's on the to-do list for sure, though. Well,
you've got an open invite. As we get into season talks, I mean, obviously ice. We finally have ice now.
Lots of it
today. I think this morning when I got up, it said it felt like -8, 10.
Yeah, we were -9 this morning. So
like 15 here.
So we're getting a lot of ice. I got out luckily all weekend. I was able to fish almost every day. Even went out fishing before the Lions game. RIP. But the ice has been great. It's been nice to actually have enough ice this year to fish. And it looks like the walleye perch are doing really well. Neither of you have ice fished at all.
Not this season. I was at Houghton Lake this weekend, but we did a lot of snowmobiling and skiing. So
did you see ice castles up there?
Oh yeah, I mean Houghton Lake. There was Tip Up Town as well. Mm-hmm. So Chris, if you haven't heard of this, Tip Up Town's a big like snowmobile festival ice fishing thing up in Houghton Lake.
Okay,
definitely check it out if you can. But I mean the whole lake was. We go over the Zilwaukee Bridge, and my kids lost count of how many shanties were on the ice, just on the river. And
it's like square miles of nothing but shanties and tip ups and people fishing and snowmobiles and side by sides and trucks and
truck. I won't do the truck thing.
No,
it's pretty brave.
I need to see a lot of ice to even get my fat ass out there. I ain't about that. Like, there's a bayou by my house that we used to go and take our little John boat in the summer, and the whole thing's probably 30 yards wide by 3/4 of a mile long, and at its deepest point it's like 8 feet. But if I drove out there right now over the bridge that's over the top of that bayou, I don't think you could get out and take a leak without touching another shanty. It's just going to be people just the whole thing.
The ice I was fishing on Thursday, you would not have made it out there. You would have been in the water so quickly, Justin.
I feel like I'm being discriminated against.
You are.
I need an HR complaint.
But if you haven't tried ice fishing, it really is awesome. And it's so much more comfortable than people think. And that's what I try to explain to people. That it's actually enjoyable.
Right.
You're in a shanty, it's heated, you're sitting down, you can have beers with you.
Look at me with my infinite money and golden goose is just getting me insulated shanties and heaters.
My shanty is not insulated. It is the Amazon special. I have the smallest Mr. Buddy heater that I run 4-pound propanes on. I have a lot of really cheap rods and reels.
It's a good kid sport.
I actually have an insulated shanty, but
kids love it.
So yours is already nicer than mine.
Yeah, it has a hole in it, so it's if there's wind, you got to turn it a little. And it was also free.
You can't be free. Yeah.
I want to go to the Black Lake thing. The sturgeon spearing.
Sturgeon spearing.
That's next weekend. Have you heard about that at all, Chris? There's a sturgeon spearing season at Black Lake up north. I can't remember the town, and it's called the Black Lake Sturgeon Festival. And the quota for the season is only 5 fish, and so you spear this fish, and you got to get the DNR there right away. They check it in
right away,
and then they have some big, I think a cannon or something they shoot when the season's over, and everybody packs it in, and then it's just a huge party on the ice.
Nice.
Last year they had to cancel it. Yeah. Last year they had to cancel it because there's no ice.
too. Like it can literally, everyone gets out, they set up, you spear 5, whatever the limit of sturgeon is, it's done. Once they sound off that alarm, you're done fishing. There is no more spearing. It is really, really quick.
Yeah.
It's intense though, because they have the big blackout shanties, and they cut a big 6-foot hole in the ice, and it's wild, but it's one of our shortest seasons and one of the most coveted things. And so if you ever get a chance to go up there and check out the sturgeon spearing, that'd be a cool thing too.
That was Black Sturgeon?
Black Lake
Sturgeon Festival. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And y'all have an event this weekend, yeah? For over at Shiawassee?
Sure.
Our on the ground event. Yes,
that's right.
We are maintaining wood boxes this weekend.
Yeah, I gotta see if I'm trying to make it there, so we'll see. But hopefully I can.
Oh, yeah, Shiawassee wouldn't be too far.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you have an open invite to come ice fish whenever you want. Just get a hold of us, and we'll get you out there.
Appreciate it.
Get you in the magazine too here, man. We'll have to have you write an article for us.
No, that'd be awesome. Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
All right. For sure. And the Michigan Outdoors podcast is proud to partner with Domain Outdoor. Domain hand selects the highest quality seeds and ingredients so you can be confident when you choose Domain, you're choosing legendary products, performance, and customer support. I personally use Comeback Kid in my food plot, which is a cold season perennial and annual mix. I've had great success with it, and I highly recommend it. MUCC members get an exclusive discount at domainoutdoor.com with promo code MUCC10 for 10% off their order. Again, that's MUCC10 for 10% off your order. With Domain Outdoor, turn your property into a domain. This is your land. All right. And then to wrap up, we've just got a couple housekeeping things. So we are still running our year-end appeal and selling our 2025 calendar. So if you have not yet, first off, pick up our 2025 calendar. Has all of your season dates, MUCC dates, holidays, events, everything that you would need as a Michigan sportsman or woman in there. So make sure to pick that up on our website. For the calendar is $20. And then for $50, you get the calendar and an MUCC branded pocket knife.
What do they get for $128?
For $100, you get a cooler, an MUCC branded cooler and the calendar. And for $125, you get the cooler, the branded pocket knife, and the calendar.
But if I wanted to do $128, I couldn't.
You get to pay the processing fee if you want, and you can make it $120.
You're both missing it here.
I think I'm picking up on it. And then we also have Outdoor Rama coming up. So February 20th through 23rd, MUCC will have a booth at Outdoor Rama. If you did not get a chance to come check us out at the Ultimate Fishing Show Detroit, come check us out at Outdoor Rama. Come say hi. We're selling merchandise, memberships. We've got a bunch of stuff about the youth camp to talk about.
Gun raffle.
We've got some giveaways. So if you did not get a chance, make sure to come see us at Outdoor Rama at the Suburban Collection
Showplace.
It is at
Suburban Collection Showplace, and we actually have a bunch of buy one, get one free ticket coupons. So if you are heading that way, shoot us an email at info@mucc.org or podcast@mucc.org, and we can send you out some of the tickets for coupons. And that 400 Legend is looking pretty sweet. So we're going to be raffling off a Ruger American Gen 2 400 Legend. It's a newer caliber, straight wall cartridge, legal in the limited firearm zone, brand new firearm that is fresh out of the box. It also comes with 2 boxes of ammo, so you can already start to go sight it in and shoot it. $5 a ticket at the shows. We'll be selling tickets at Outdoor Rama and the Ultimate Sports Show Grand Rapids in March.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I forgot to talk about was the year-end appeal. So if you have not, I know you've been getting lots of emails in your inbox about our year-end appeal. All of your donations are greatly appreciated and help support the great work that we do to conserve, protect, and defend our natural resources and outdoor heritage.
And convention. Don't forget, convention is coming up March 7th, 8th, and 9th. We're going to be at Treetops Resort in Gaylord. This is an open event to all members of MUCC. This is where we set our grassroots policy and legislative priorities that Justin works on every year. So the unique thing about MUCC is we're a grassroots organization to where we as staff do not pick what we support, whether we oppose or we support things, or if we have a stance on something, if we're neutral. That is driven by our membership. So if you want a voice in the things that we go to bat for or we oppose, the best place to do that is at convention. It's open to all members and club affiliates as well. Come and have your voice be heard. And we're going to have a lot of fun this year up there. And just get together and celebrate our outdoor heritage and get to work on all the things we have to conserve, protect, and defend.
All right. And that's all we've got. Chris, thank you so much again for joining us. It was great to chat. Great to learn more about you. Like I said, we've got an open invite for you to come ice fishing. And
appreciate it, guys.
waterfowl and upland birds with you this
And
year.
Chris, tell everybody where they can find you on the platforms and your tag handles and all that stuff too, real fast.
Yeah. So it's either the social medias, it's the Hunting Traveler, and Traveler's got 2 L's in it because I spell it the Southern way. And then website, same thing, thehuntingtraveler.com. It's got a lot of stories on there. And then started doing some book reviews. That's the bookshelf part. And yeah, so just check it out. I'm happy to talk Boykins. I'm going to do a little self-plug. In March, we're having another Boykin Spaniel event. So if someone's interested in the breed, just contact me. We love if people are thinking about maybe getting a pup to come out, talk to us, see some dogs run. It's going to be at one of the pheasant preserves over on the West Coast. I can't remember which one. Yeah, if someone wants to talk Boykins, by all means, shoot me a message and we can go from there.
Wait,
Awesome.
book reviews, completely unrelated. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Man, I don't know. I read
He's like neither.
There is a
I'm
right
thinking
answer.
So I read Harry Potter in middle school. Lord of the Rings I read when I was older, so probably Lord of the Rings I would appreciate
you.
more. Yeah. So I'd go there.
That is the correct answer.
I'm glad I passed the test.
These idiots think Harry Potter.
I have 3 kids, and
That's fair.
We're in that phase right now.
I've never read Lord of the Rings, so
It's good, but it's drawn out at times for sure. So,
Dude, the 2 Towers has some really brutal parts you got to get to.
No, the worst one's a Fellowship. It takes a minute to get through book 1. So,
right.
but you are right, Chris. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, likewise.
As we digress into
Yeah.
fantasy literature.
Wait. Okay. We got to do the question then. We'll
Yep.
end with this.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
We ask all of our guests,
Mm-hmm.
how many squirrels do you eat in a year?
Ooh,
On average, yeah.
probably like 0.5 because I haven't eaten one in a long time. But in Virginia, we used to eat a bunch. We have a Brunswick stew, and so squirrel meat is one of the best things to throw in a Brunswick stew. So currently half a squirrel maybe per year, but back when I lived down south, we'd eat them pretty often.
greater than 0 is the preferred answer. So.
I passed.
Yeah, it's another simple litmus test.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. Go give Chris a follow on social media. Go check out his website. And thanks again for joining us.
And join MUCC.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep, absolutely.